I still remember the moment our scanners detected the signal buried beneath the asteroid's crust, a frequency older than our species, older than every star chart ever drawn. I should have turned back. I should have warned them. But instead, I touched it. Before I go on, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. I want to know how far my story travels across the stars. The light in the control room felt colder that day, or maybe it was just the chill that crept into my bones. My hands trembled as I stared at the flickering readouts, my heartbeat syncing with the rhythmic beeping of the machines. I was alone, surrounded by a metal womb that kept us insulated from the void, yet I felt exposed, as if the weight of the universe pressed down on me the moment I knew what we had found. The asteroid belt was notorious for its secrets. Small fragments of a long-dead civilization floated among the debris, remnants of a galactic age lost to time. We had spent years mining these rocks, searching for minerals that could fuel our ships and sustain our colonies. I never expected to find a whisper from beyond, a relic of a past that had been buried in silence. But silence can scream louder than any voice. I closed my eyes, imagining the moment we unearthed it. The small team of astronomers I had worked with for decades gathered around the ancient artifact, their faces lit by the dull glow of the control panel. We were a group of explorers, drawn to the unknown, and now we were on the brink of something that could shatter our understanding of existence. My breath hitched as I recalled the moment we brushed away the dust, revealing intricate carvings that seemed to hum with energy. And the moment I hesitated, that slight pause, did it mean I sensed the danger lurking beneath the surface? But the thrill of discovery lured me in. I reached out, fingers trembling, and touched the surface of the object. It felt alive, vibrating with an energy that coursed through me like a shockwave. The moment I made contact, the scanners erupted into chaos. Alarms blared, warnings flashed, and the ship shook as if the universe itself protested our intrusion. We were not prepared for what lay ahead. The first tremor was small, a mere shiver in the fabric of space. But it escalated rapidly, turning into a violent quake that rattled our control room. I could hear the voices of my colleagues rising in panic, drowned out by the cacophony of alarms. I didn't know what was happening, but I felt the cold tendrils of fear wrapping around my heart. Then, silence. The kind of silence that fills your ears with a deafening roar. In that moment, we were enveloped in a void that felt as vast as the cosmos itself. It was then that I realized we had awakened something that should have remained undisturbed. The ship's systems began failing one by one, the lights flickering in and out as if signaling the end. I watched in horror as my colleagues scrambled for control, their faces twisted in disbelief. I could see the fear in their eyes, mirroring my own. We had unearthed a relic of a civilization long gone, but instead of bringing us answers, it had unleashed chaos. The asteroid we had been studying began to fracture, pieces breaking off and spiraling into the darkness. I could hear the distant rumble of something powerful, a force unlike any I had felt before. It was as though the remnants of an ancient war were surfacing, and we were caught in the crossfire. The vibrations intensified, and then came the first wave, a shock wave that reverberated through the ship, throwing us against the walls like rag dolls. It was chaos. Alarms screamed, metal groaned, and desperation hung thick in the air. I stumbled through the control room, trying to make sense of the frantic shouts and the rising panic. One by one, my colleagues fell silent, absorbed by the dark energy that seemed to pulse from the relic. I could feel it in my bones, a malignant force that whispered secrets only to those who dared to listen. We were not alone. The realization gripped my mind, a cold web of dread. Outside the ship, I caught glimpses of shapes darting through the debris, shadows that danced in the light of dying stars, remnants of a civilization that had known both greatness and ruin. They were the echoes of a war long forgotten, and we had unwittingly awakened them. One by one, fleets began to fall from the skies. Ships that had once roamed the cosmos with pride now crumbled into cosmic dust, caught in a storm of energy unleashed by our reckless curiosity. I watched from the viewport, frozen in horror as familiar vessels twisted and torn apart, their destruction a brutal ballet against a backdrop of dark space. It was then that I understood the gravity of our mistake. We had provoked an ancient power, and the consequences would ripple through dimensions we could barely comprehend. My mind raced as I struggled to grasp the enormity of what we had unleashed. Was it mere coincidence that we found this relic, or was it a call to something greater? The lines of fate twisted around us, pulling tight as the universe shifted. In the depths of chaos, I could feel a shift within myself, a flicker of hope igniting against the despair. But hope was a fragile thing, easily snuffed out in the face of overwhelming darkness. The remnants of that ancient civilization were not just echoes. They were a warning. We had opened a door that should have remained closed, and now the universe was demanding a reckoning. As the last remnants of our fleet floundered in the void, I felt the weight of their loss pressing down on me. My heart raced, and I could sense the walls closing in. I was a bystander in my own life, watching as the universe waged war on our arrogance. The shadows outside began to take shape, formed by ancient forces that stirred with renewed purpose. And there I stood, at the edge of oblivion, with the past rising to claim its due. The echoes of war reverberated through time and space, and I could only wonder, had we truly found a relic, or had it found us? The void loomed ahead, threatening to swallow us whole. As the vibrations intensified, I prepared myself for the inevitable. The pulse of the relic echoed in my chest, and I felt its call. The galaxy was shifting, and somewhere in the chaos, I could sense the direction of my own path unfolding. I had no idea what awaited me, but one thing was certain: the discovery of the relic had only been the beginning. A new chapter was about to unfold in the vast tapestry of the cosmos, and I was irrevocably intertwined with its fate. I still remember the moment the relic awoke. It was as if the cosmos held its breath, a silence that gripped the ship. The energy I had felt coursing through my fingers became a pulse, a heartbeat echoing in the stillness of the control room. The lights flickered overhead as alarms erupted around me, creating a cacophony that felt both familiar and foreign. My heart raced, pounding against my ribcage like a desperate warning. What just happened? My voice cracked, ricocheting off the sterile walls, swallowed by the chaos that erupted in the control room. My crew dispersed in a frenzy, scrambling to their stations, their faces pale and wide-eyed. The air crackled with tension, thickening as we tried to comprehend the events unfolding before us. Chaos was a cruel master, and it soon took the reins. The ship trembled beneath my feet as if it were an extension of my own anxiety. I glanced at the holographic displays, each readout flashing warnings: shields failing, energy surges, systems collapsing one after another as if the universe itself imploded around us. The signal we had unearthed was no mere echo of the past. It was a call, a beacon that stirred forces deep within the dark expanse of space. "Get us out of here," I shouted, my voice barely cutting through the noise. I could see the fear in my crew's eyes, a reflection of my own dread. We were on the precipice of something unimaginable. The asteroid belt that had held secrets for millennia now felt like a trap, closing in around us. "Engines are failing," called out Lena, our chief engineer, her fingers flying over the control console. The lights flickered again, casting eerie shadows across her face. "We need to stabilize the power, or we won't make it out of the field." But how could we stabilize something that had already begun to unravel? I felt like a marionette, strings tangled in chaos, powerless against the forces we had awakened. The ship jolted violently, sending me crashing against the wall. Pain shot through my shoulder, but I barely registered it. My gaze was drawn to the view screen, and what I saw chilled me to the core. Emerging from the shadows of the asteroid belt were vessels, massive warships, their hulls glinting ominously in the dim light. They bore insignias I had never seen, ancient and powerful. A chill ran down my spine as the realization hit me. We were not alone. The relic had stirred something that had long been dormant, waking an empire I had read about only in the ashes of history. "We're being tracked," Theo, the navigator, shouted, his voice edged with panic. "They're moving in fast." I could only stare, horror gripping my heart as the ships converged upon us like vultures to carrion. They were drawn to the beacon we had inadvertently lit, their intent unmistakable. Somewhere deep within me, a voice whispered that we had awakened a sleeping giant, and now it was angry. "Divert all power to shields," I commanded, though it felt futile. We were outmatched and outgunned, surrounded by a fleet that seemed to have risen from the depths of legend. The relic had become a catalyst for our destruction, a cruel twist of fate that shackled us to a past we thought we had long buried. "We're being tracked," Theo, the navigator, shouted, his voice edged with panic. "They're moving in fast." I could only stare, horror gripping my heart as the ships converged upon us like vultures to carrion. They were drawn to the beacon we had inadvertently lit, their intent unmistakable. Somewhere deep within me, a voice whispered that we had awakened a sleeping giant, and now it was angry. "Divert all power to shields," I commanded, though it felt futile. We were outmatched and outgunned, surrounded by a fleet that seemed to have risen from the depths of legend. The relic had become a catalyst for our destruction, a cruel twist of fate that shackled us to a past we thought we had long buried. The first blast struck us hard, a violent explosion that rattled the ship to its core. I was thrown against the control panel, gasping for breath as alarms blared in my ears. The lights dimmed further, flickering like dying stars. Desperation clawed at my insides as I struggled to regain control. "Return fire!" I yelled, though I knew it was a hollow command. Our weapons felt impotent against the might of the incoming assault. I could see the shockwaves rippling through the enemy ships, their hulls impervious to our feeble attempts at defense. They didn't just want to disable us, they wanted to annihilate us. The second blast was more devastating. I could feel the ship shudder, metal creaking and groaning, as if it were alive and suffering. The control room was awash in chaos, crew members yelling, scrambling for some semblance of control. I fumbled with the controls, trying to issue orders, but the words caught in my throat, choked by the weight of despair. "We're losing power," Lena cried out. "Shields are down to 20%. The ship lurched again, throwing me to the floor. I lay there, gasping, feeling the cold metal beneath me, the vibration of the ship echoing through my bones. My heart raced as I struggled to process what we had unleashed. The relic, once a symbol of hope, had become a harbinger of doom. I could hear the distant sound of explosions, the cries of my crew, but a strange calm settled over me. I was witnessing the birth of a war, a conflict that had been dormant for eons until we unwittingly struck the match. My breaths slowed as I closed my eyes, attempting to find clarity amidst the chaos. I had to find a way to save them, to save myself. Suddenly, a blinding light flooded the control room as an enemy ship loomed closer, its weapons charging for another strike. In that moment, I realized I could not act alone. The relic had awakened something in me, a connection to the energy swirling around us. It was as if I could feel the pulse of the universe, the rhythm of conflict and creation entwined. "Get to the escape pods," I shouted, my voice breaking through the din. "Now!" The crew hesitated, fear etched on their faces. But I grabbed Lena's arm, pulling her toward the exit. "We have to go. If we stay here, we won't survive." The ship trembled violently again, and I could hear the alarms blaring in a frantic chorus. I turned back to see Theo struggling with the controls, his face a mask of determination. "I can buy us some time," he shouted. "No," I urged, a new determination igniting within me. "We need to escape. We can't fight them, not yet." As the ship began to buckle around us, we pushed through the chaos, the fate of our mission hanging in the balance. The relic's awakening had set in motion a storm that no one could have anticipated. And as we made our way to the escape pods, I felt the weight of destiny pressing down on me. The moment we reached the hatch, I felt the ship lurch one final time. It was a desperate gasp, the last cry of a dying vessel. I glanced back, a part of me wanting to grasp the relic one last time, to understand what had tethered our fates. But the moment passed, and all that remained was the flickering light of the control panel, fading into darkness. I could hear the distant sounds of explosions and screams fading behind me as I sealed the escape pod's hatch, the last remnants of our mission drifting away into the void. We were alive, but at what cost? As the pod shot away from the wreckage, I looked back at the ship that had been our home, now nothing more than a memory swallowed by the darkness. The universe had changed. A war was on the horizon, and we had awoken the forces that would tear through the stars. I realized that this was only the beginning, the first chapter in a story that had long been written in the fabric of the cosmos. And as the stars twinkled in the distance, I understood that my journey was far from over. The relic's secret still beckoned, waiting for me in the vastness of space. I still remember the moment I felt the pulse of the relic beneath my fingertips, as if it were a heartbeat echoing through the silence of space. The energy surged within me, binding me to something ancient and unfathomable. It was a connection that transcended time and place, wrapping around my very soul, and yet it was suffocating. I could not comprehend what I had awakened. In the days that followed, the world outside grew cold. The reports of anomalies flared to life on our scanners, disturbances in the fabric of reality that seemed to ripple outwards from our location, like a stone thrown into a still pond. Ships began to vanish, whole fleets swallowed by a darkness that swallowed light itself. A creeping dread settled into my bones, gnawing at the edges of my resolve. I wanted to scream, to warn my team, but the words caught in my throat, tangled with fear and uncertainty. I isolated myself, retreating into the depths of the control room, drowning in the glow of the screens that surrounded me. Numbers and graphs flickered like ghosts, dancing mockingly in front of my eyes. I was a prisoner in my own mind, haunted by the knowledge that I had touched something I could not control. I replayed the moment over and over, each iteration stripping away my confidence, leaving only echoes of regret. Each day, I watched as my colleagues debated what our next steps should be. They were animated, fueled by the adrenaline of discovery, but I couldn't participate. They spoke of potential, of the possibility of unlocking the secrets of the universe, but I saw only destruction lurking in the shadows, waiting to consume us all. I felt like a ghost among them, invisible, my voice drowned out by their excitement. I often found myself staring out into the void, seeking comfort in the stars that twinkled in the distance. Each point of light was a distant world, a reminder of the vastness that surrounded us. But the silence was deafening. The cosmos, once a source of wonder, had become a mirror reflecting my own despair. I longed for the chatter of my team, the camaraderie we once shared, but every word felt heavy, laden with unspeakable truths. If you've ever stayed silent because you knew the universe wouldn't listen, write yes in the comments. I felt the weight of that statement deep within me. How many times had I chosen silence over the vulnerability of sharing my fears? I had always been the one who looked to the stars, clocking in hours of longing as I pondered the depths of our existence. Yet here I was, drowning in my own silence as chaos brewed like a storm outside. As the days turned into weeks, I lost track of time. My world became a series of moments spent in a sterile room, where the smell of metal and technology mingled with anxiety. I had become a specter, drifting through the corridors of the base, watching as the dread began to take hold of my team. Their laughter had faded, voices reduced to hushed whispers. It was as if the air itself had thickened with an unspoken tension. We were on the brink of something monumental, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that we were also on the brink of annihilation. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flashes of destruction, the fleets collapsing, planets being torn apart, civilizations falling into chaos. The future I had envisioned for us was now clouded by a shadow, a darkness that loomed ever closer. I felt the cold fingers of despair gripping my heart, and I struggled to breathe. The walls of the control room felt like they were closing in on me. It was during one of these moments of suffocating isolation that I noticed something strange. I had been staring blankly at the monitors when a flicker caught my attention, a series of readings. My heart raced as I focused on the data flowing across the screen. It was a pattern, a sequence hidden within the chaos, a code that seemed to pulse in time with the relic's heartbeat. Suddenly, I felt a surge of hope, a glimmer of understanding that broke through the fog of despair. What if this was a message, a communication buried within the anomalies, waiting for someone to decipher it? I could feel the remnants of my courage flooding back. Perhaps I wasn't entirely alone. Perhaps there was something I could do. With renewed determination, I gathered the courage to share my findings with the team. I stepped out of the control room, fighting against the doubt that tried to wrap around me like chains. Their faces were shocked as I laid out the data. I spoke of a potential avenue for understanding the relic, a way to turn the tide of fear into action. But my words fell flat. They listened, but their eyes reflected the dark weight of our situation. I wanted to scream at them to see it as I did, to understand the importance of solving this mystery. But the silence hung heavy in the air, thick and oppressive. I felt like I was screaming into a void, and the emptiness swallowed my voice whole. Days passed, and the tension escalated. Rumors of attacks spread like a contagion, each ship that went silent adding to the panic. The once thriving base was now a shell of its former self, a sanctuary turned prison. I was back at my station, staring at the monitors, the only sound the quiet hum of machines working tirelessly to uncover our fate. And yet, there, amidst the chaos, I saw it again, the pulsing code, the heartbeat of the relic, thrumming in a rhythm of urgency. My mind raced. I had to decode it. I needed to understand what the relic was trying to tell us before it was too late. I could feel the pressure building, a wave of desperation swelling within me. As I delved deeper into the data, I began to lose myself in the process. Hours turned to days, and the lines of code blurred together. I was on the precipice of a revelation, but I also felt the weight of the world pressing down on me. The closer I got to the truth, the more I feared what it would mean. Would I uncover salvation or condemn us all? In the distance, I could hear the low rumble of engines approaching, and my heart sank as dread washed over me. Something was coming, and I felt as if I were in the eye of a storm, a calm before the chaos. My fingers trembled over the controls, knowing I had only moments before I would confront the reality of our choices. I took a deep breath, my eyes locked on the screen. It was time to uncover what lay beneath the surface, to face the darkness that awaited us. The relic was calling to me, a siren song echoing through the silence, urging me to discover its truth. But I was no longer certain whether that truth would be a beacon of hope or a harbinger of doom. In the space between stars, the answers waited, and I was ready to reach for them, even if it meant confronting the void. I struggled to regain my footing, the ship thrumming with wild energy. Each tremor felt like a heartbeat of the cosmos itself, and I was caught in its frantic pulse. My gaze darted to the navigation panel, where swirling lights and warning signals painted a grim picture. I felt the cold sweat trickle down my back as I clutched the edge of the console for support. Chaos surrounded me, a living entity that thrived on fear and despair. Lena, can you reroute the auxiliary power? We need at least minimal control. I shouted, trying to keep my voice steady, but the tremor betrayed me. She bit her lip, her brow furrowed in concentration. I'll try, but there's no guarantee. This energy, it's like nothing I've ever seen before. It's overwhelming. Her fingers danced over the controls, a delicate ballet of desperation and hope against the backdrop of impending doom. I glanced at the view screen, where the vastness of space loomed before us, now distorted by the crackle of unstable energy. The once tranquil field of asteroids appeared menacing, a graveyard of ancient remnants that had held their secrets for eons. Would we become another lost relic, swallowed by the void? "Commander!" shouted Jay, our weapons officer, his voice rising above the chaos. "The ship's systems are failing. Shields are down to 20%. We can't last much longer." "Then we need to make a choice," I said, forcing clarity into the turmoil. "We can't face whatever is coming after us without shields. We must either escape this field or confront the force we've awakened." The crew's eyes flickered with uncertainty, a silent acknowledgement of the gravity of our situation. We had stumbled upon something monumental, yet now it felt like a curse. We stood at the edge of a precipice, with the abyss below waiting to swallow us whole. "Captain," Lena's voice softened, her resolve wavering, "if we leave now, we might never understand what we've uncovered. But if we stay, it could cost us everything." A choice. Always a choice, and never a simple one. I could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on me, a dark shroud blending with the shadows that already consumed the room. I had thrust us into this cosmic mystery, but now the burden of leadership felt like a chain around my neck. "Prepare for a jump to hyperspace," I commanded, though uncertainty gnawed at my insides. "We'll regroup and assess our options from a safe distance." "Hyperspace might destabilize the ship further," Lena protested. "We could rupture the core." "Then we'll do it together," I replied, a fierce determination igniting within me. "We may not survive this, but we will not die without a fight." The crew exchanged glances, the flicker of fear and resolve reflected in their eyes. It was a moment of unity forged in the chaos, and I felt a surge of strength. We were not merely passengers on this journey, we were a collective, bound by the unknown. I focused on Lena, whose hands were poised over the controls. "Ready?" She hesitated only briefly, then nodded, her expression resolute. "Ready." "Engage!" I shouted, unleashing the words like a battle cry. The engines roared to life, a fierce, mechanical symphony that reverberated through the ship. I felt the jolt as we surged forward, the stars stretching into brilliant lines of light against the deep black of space. For a fleeting moment, I believed we had escaped our fate. But then came the inevitable crash, a sudden, bone-rattling jolt that sent us sprawling. Alarms blared anew, drowning out my thoughts as the ship bucked beneath us like a wild beast. The view screen flickered, revealing the majestic dance of stars and asteroids giving way to an overwhelming expanse of nothingness. "Status report," I demanded, struggling to regain my footing. "Systems failing! We're losing power fast!" Lena shouted, her voice laced with panic. I swallowed hard, my heart racing. This was not just about survival, it was about the relic we had awakened. What force had we intruded upon? What cosmic entity lingered, roused by our curiosity? "Jay," I called, desperation creeping into my tone, "get us weapons online. If something comes for us, we need to be ready. Yes, sir, but I can't promise they'll work. Everything is barely holding together. His voice trembled, matching the pervasive fear that gripped my own heart. The ship's lights flickered ominously as we drifted further from the asteroid field. Silence enveloped us, an eerie pause where even the alarms seemed to hold their breath. I could feel the weight of the cosmos pressing down on us, an invisible force daring us to comprehend the unknown. Then, as if answering a call, a pulse of light erupted from the dark void, illuminating our surroundings. It was beautiful and terrifying, a swirling mass of energy that seemed to pulse in rhythm with my own heart. "What is that?" Lena whispered, awe and fear intertwining in her voice. "I don't know," I admitted, my breath caught in my throat. "But it feels alive." The light expanded and contracted like a cosmic heartbeat, drawing closer yet remaining just out of reach. It was mesmerizing, a beacon that promised knowledge and danger in equal measure. I felt an inexplicable connection to it, a whisper of understanding that reached out to me. "Commander, it's shifting," Jay shouted, panic lacing his words. "It's coming towards us." With instinct overriding my rational mind, I reached for the control panel. "Brace for impact." The ship trembled violently as the force enveloped us, a wave of energy crashing against our hull. I gripped the console, my knuckles white with fear. The pulse of light wrapped around us, drowning out our alarms and the chaos of the ship. Then, everything went dark. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. I felt weightless, suspended in a void that swallowed all sound and fury. My heart raced as I struggled to comprehend what had just happened. Had we crossed into another dimension? Had we been obliterated by the force we awakened? And then, slowly, light began to seep back into existence. But this was not the cold, sterile light of our ship. It was warm, ethereal, and filled with echoes of voices long forgotten. I could hear whispers, a chorus of souls reaching through the veil of time and space. "Commander, are you there?" Lena's voice broke through the otherworldly hum, grounding me in reality. "What happened?" "I'm not sure," I stammered, still disoriented. "But I think we've awoken something far beyond our understanding." The ship flickered back to life, systems rebooting with a soft hum. I glanced around the control room, the faces of my crew illuminated by the strange, shimmering light that filled the space around us. "What do we do now?" Jay asked, his voice laced with uncertainty. A sense of dread settled over me, but beneath that fear, I felt a flicker of something else. Curiosity. This was not the end, it was merely the beginning. Whatever lay ahead was shrouded in mystery, but it also held the promise of revelation. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of our choices settle upon my shoulders. We find out what we've awakened. Together. With that, we initiated our systems, ready to face the unknown. The ship, our vessel through the cosmos, was more than just metal and wires. It was our lifeline, a beacon in the vast dark. The answers we sought were out there, waiting for us to uncover them. And with every heartbeat, I knew we would confront whatever lay ahead, together. The cosmos, once a source of wonder, had transformed into a haunting expanse of emptiness. I yearned for the warmth of connection, yet I found myself repulsed by the very uncertainty I had unleashed. Days bled into one another, and with every passing hour, I felt the weight of the relic's secrets settle deeper into my bones. I couldn't shake the feeling that the universe was holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable storm to descend upon us. As I sat alone in the control room, the hum of machinery became a haunting lullaby. I gazed at the monitors, where numbers and data cascaded relentlessly, mocking my inaction. Each flickering screen told a story of impending doom, of fleets disappearing as if being consumed by an insatiable black hole. I could almost hear their final cries echoing through the vacuum of space, but my heart felt too heavy to mourn for them. I had to confront the reality I had brought upon us. A sudden alert blared, and I flinched at the sound. The screen flickered to life, revealing a transmission intercepted from a distant star system. I leaned closer, my heart racing. The words formed like an intricate tapestry, weaving a narrative I couldn't fully understand. It was a message, not meant for us, but for those who would follow in our wake, humanity's successors. My hands trembled as I typed commands to enhance the signal, desperate to decipher the meaning behind it. Quote, "And when the time comes, the relic will awaken. It is not for the frail. The balance must be restored." End quote. The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt the room spin around me. The relic, a source of power, a vessel of ancient knowledge, was not merely a discovery. It was a weapon, a key to a door that should never have been opened. The echoes of my colleagues' excitement drifted to the back of my mind, replaced by a chilling realization. Those who sought to harness its power would be met with destruction. I had set in motion a chain of events that could lead to the obliteration of our existence. I closed my eyes, allowing the darkness to envelop me. I wished to escape this burden, to silence the guilt gnawing at my soul. Yet, within that silence, I felt the relic's presence. It pulsed with energy, a reminder of my connection to something greater, yet something deeply flawed. I was its keeper. The weight of that title pressed down on me like the gravity of a dying star, inescapable and suffocating. It wasn't long before the whispers of my colleagues reached a fever pitch. They gathered around the central table, their faces lit with a blend of fear and fascination. I listened, unable to join them, my heart aching as they toyed with fate. They spoke of alliances, of strategies to wield the relic's power against our enemies. But what they saw as a potential for victory, I saw as a promise of devastation. The relic could not be tamed. It was not a weapon for victory. It was a harbinger of chaos. Quote, "We must strike before they do," one of my colleagues said, his voice rising above the others. "We have uncovered something that could shift the balance of power in our favor. We can't waste this opportunity." As they planned their next move, I found myself gripped by a suffocating dread. I wanted to speak, to warn them, but my voice was trapped beneath layers of fear and uncertainty. What if I was wrong? What if the relic could be controlled? The questions spiraled in my mind, each one leading me deeper into the abyss. I felt like a prisoner within my own skin, watching the clock tick down to an inevitable confrontation. The gleam of ambition in their eyes only deepened my isolation. I wanted to shout, to shake them awake, to make them see the precipice we teetered on. Yet I remained silent, a ghost drifting through the heated debate. The storm was brewing, and I feared the impact it would have when it finally broke. Days turned into a blur of preparation. As the fleets readied themselves for engagement, I found myself retreating further into the confines of my mind. I wandered the halls, my thoughts echoing through the emptiness. I sought solace among the stars, but the vastness offered little comfort. The universe seemed to reflect my own turmoil, endless, cold, and filled with darkness. In my isolation, I began to piece together the nature of the relic. It was not merely a tool, it was a cosmic entity, a fragment of a civilization long extinguished. I saw reflections of my own humanity in its complexity. It had the power to create and to destroy, to illuminate and to cast shadows. My heart ached with the knowledge that I had awakened something that was once thought to be lost to time. The night before the planned assault, I stood at the observation deck, staring out at the stars. There was a beauty in their distance, yet they felt unreachable. I wished for clarity, for a sign that might guide me to the right path. Instead, I found nothing but silence. Without communication, without guidance, I felt like a wayward traveler adrift in a dark sea. Then, as if the universe responded to my yearning, the relic began to resonate. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through the floor and into my very being. I stumbled back, feeling the weightlessness of the cosmos pressing down upon me. I grasped the edge of the control panel for support. The energy surged, weaving through my thoughts, revealing glimpses of an ancient truth. It was as though the relic was awakening within me, and I was left to navigate the storm of its power. The future is not ours to command, a voice echoed in my mind, soothing yet stern. It was a message from the relic, a reminder that the course of history had already been set in motion. I felt a surge of urgency. If I did not intervene, chaos would reign. As the stars blinked out one by one, I knew what must be done. I turned away from the dark expanse, determination igniting within me. I had to warn them and prevent the catastrophe that loomed on the horizon. The weight of the relic's burden had shifted. I would no longer be a passive observer. I would act. The universe had given me a second chance, and I would not squander it. I felt the weight of Lena's words settle heavily upon my chest, blending with the chaos swirling around us. The tension was palpable. She was right. I could sense the gravity of our choice hanging in the air like the remnants of a shattered star. Did we dare to uncover the truths hidden in the darkness, even if it meant risking our lives? Or did we flee, leaving the mysteries of the cosmos unexamined, perhaps forever? I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the sirens and alarms fade into a distant hum. Lena, we're explorers, I said, forcing my voice to remain steady. If we run now, we might abandon the very reason we left Earth. We owe it to ourselves, to all of humanity, to understand what we found. Jay was shaking his head, frustration crinkling the corners of his eyes. Commander, this isn't just an expedition anymore. We're in uncharted territory, and it's not safe. We don't even know what we've awakened. Perhaps it's not about safety anymore, I replied, my heart racing. It's about understanding. A moment of silence passed, stretching like the void outside our ship. I could feel the energy pulsing around us, a living thing eager to be acknowledged. It was as if the cosmos itself was watching, waiting for a decision. Then, let's prepare for impact, Lena finally said, her fingers resuming their dance across the controls with newfound determination. If we're going to face this, we'll do it together. Agreed, I said, feeling a flicker of hope among the fear. Jay, keep scanning for any signs of... Before I could finish, the ship convulsed violently, throwing us against our harnesses. Alarms blared as warning lights erupted in a cascade of flashing red. Energy fluctuations are off the charts, Lena shouted, her voice barely cutting through the chaos. It's like the relic is reacting to our presence. Then we have to hold our ground, I shouted back, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Lena, focus on that energy, find a way to stabilize it. I could see the determination in her eyes, a fierce spark of resolve igniting amidst the fear. She nodded, even as the ship trembled beneath us. I turned my gaze back to the view screen, and what I saw sent shivers down my spine. A swirling mass of energy was coalescing in the distance, a vibrant storm of colors dancing against the backdrop of the cosmos. It was beautiful and terrifying, an otherworldly display that felt both inviting and threatening. Commander, it's forming into a... Jay began, but I cut him off, my attention locked onto the spectacle unfolding before us. Lena, can you amplify the sensors? I need to know what we're dealing with. I'm on it, she replied, fingers flying over the console as she adjusted the settings. The screen flickered, showing the mass becoming more defined. Tendrils of energy snaked toward us, like fingers reaching out to beckon us closer. What if it's hostile? Jay asked, his voice tinged with fear. Then we'll confront it, I said, my voice unwavering. We can't turn back now. We've come too far. As I spoke those words, the energy storm seemed to respond, pulsating rhythmically as if it could hear us. The air around us crackled with electricity, vibrating with an unfamiliar energy that felt both ancient and alive. I had no idea how long we could withstand the onslaught, but I knew we had to try. "Prepare the shields for reinforcement," I commanded. "We'll need every bit of power we can muster." "I'm diverting all auxiliary power to the shields," Lena shouted, her focus unwavering even as the ship shook violently. In that moment, everything coalesced: the energy storm, our fear, our determination. And then, without warning, the storm unleashed a barrage of energy that crashed against our shields. The ship shuddered violently, rattling every bolt and panel. I could feel the strain in the hull, a visceral reminder of how fragile we truly were against the vastness of space. "Shields holding at 30%, Lena yelled, panic creeping into her voice. "But they won't last much longer." "Reinforce them with whatever we can spare," I shouted, my heart racing. "We need to endure." Suddenly, the view screen flickered again, and a vision emerged from the storm. It was a figure, draped in a shimmering robe that seemed woven from the very fabric of the universe. Its eyes glowed with an ethereal light, radiating an ancient wisdom that resonated deep within me. Time seemed to slow down as the figure raised a hand, gesturing toward us. "Seekers of truth," it spoke, its voice echoing through the ship, a melodic sound that reached into my very soul. "You have awakened the essence of the cosmos. You stand at a precipice between understanding and oblivion." I felt my breath catch in my throat, my heart pounding in my ears. The weight of its words settled upon me, a reminder of the monumental choice we had made. "What do you want?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. To my surprise, the being smiled, and for an instant I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. "I do not wish harm upon you, but the path you tread is fraught with peril. Knowledge can be a weapon, and you must choose how to wield it." "Help us understand," I replied, desperation mingling with hope. "Show us the way." The figure's eyes seemed to shine brighter, and for a moment the storm quieted. "Embrace the energy. It is the key to your survival and the means to avert a greater darkness." As soon as the figure spoke, the energy storm intensified, wrapping around our ship in a cocoon of light. I could feel the power coursing through me, a connection forming between the relic, the cosmos, and us. "Hold on," I shouted, bracing myself for what was to come. And then the world exploded into light, a fusion of colors and sensations that enveloped us completely. In that moment, I understood the relic's true purpose, the connections it had forged across time and space, and the responsibility that came with such power. A legacy of knowledge awaited us, a gift from those who had come before, and with it, the potential to reshape our future, to confront the darkness looming on the horizon. As the energy enveloped us, I felt us being propelled forward, not just through space, but through time, toward destiny. The echoes of the past whispered secrets, and in their resonance, I felt a profound sense of peace settle within me. The storm began to dissipate, and as the light faded, I opened my eyes to a tranquil expanse of stars, each one glimmering with the promise of new beginnings. We had faced the abyss and emerged transformed. Are we safe?" Ja asked, his voice laced with disbelief. "Safe?" I echoed, a smile breaking across my face. "We've only just begun." The cosmos lay before us, filled with mysteries yet to uncover. And in that moment, beneath the vast eternal sky, I knew we would face whatever came next, together.